Greetings one and all. Super Wednesdays here in the Holy Land, the Holy Apple, the Holy Hilltop, Tal Binyamin. We are on the last week of the month of Adar. This will be our last class. We have a yeshiva break, and God willing, we will return. I'm also working, trying to assist a friend of mine who's working on a book. He's asked me to help him with a certain chapter, so I'm not sure exactly when I'm going to get back, but I hope as soon as possible. I have to dedicate my time to this very important book and topic that he's writing about. Okay, this is our last Torah. Chaim, Walder, the Deniers. Okay, this is it. We've done 4 on the author. From here on in, we'll call him CW. So, don't want to say his name. Okay, very important. In the Torah of course is a book of rules. However, there are always exceptions to the rules. And this is very, very important. When do regular laws not apply? Now, this does not go contrary to Torah. This is Torah. The Torah tells us that in certain circumstances, the laws change. So what are those circumstances? Number 1, we might have violent individuals, and that scare off potential witnesses. What do we do in such a case? We know that we're supposed to bring 2 kosher witnesses to a court, to a rabbinical court, but let's say that the perpetrator is kind of known as a dangerous, a violent, threatening kind of individual, and no one wants to come in front of them and to see them testify. What do we do then? So here we have a change of the Torah rules in such a case. Number 1, we have, look it up, Bava Metzia, page 39, side B. It's the case of Mori, the son of Isaac. Check out what happens there. Exactly the scenario. Or we have the Maimonides, the laws of testimony or witnesses, we might translate it, chapter 3, law 12. Look in the Code of Jewish Law, Choshen Mishpat 28, chapter 28, law 5. And now for a short summary of a similar question that was Rabbi Ovadia Yosef. He was the head rabbi in Egypt, in Cairo. He was asked the question, this could be found in Yabia Omer, in Yoradea, the first section and the first question. In 1948, Rabbi Ovadia Yosef received a question from a Jew in Cairo. There was a Jewish worker in a meat plant who was asked by the boss to place a kosher stamp on animals that were slaughtered by non-Jews. Pretty amazing, no? Once again, a worker in a kosher, I got that, kosher butcher shop, was asked by the boss to stamp various meats or chickens as kosher meat, though they were slaughtered by non-Jews, which of course makes it unkosher meat. This Jewish boss who owns the factory, the butcher factory, he has been denying this for quite some time. Though the rumors continue to flow, plus there are a few eyewitnesses. Okay, so we have rumors about this boss who hires non-Jews to slaughter meat, and he wants one of his workers, a Jewish worker of course, to stamp it as kosher. various witnesses have come forth to testify before a Jewish rabbinical court. However, the witnesses are afraid. Where are we? To appear in court before the boss, as he is a very violent type of person. So they don't want to testify against him. You're supposed to have the person who's being charged. He should be there hearing the testimony, so he has something to respond. So the accused, the witnesses are not willing to go into a rabbinical court when the boss of the butcher factory is around. So the question is, could we go without this process in court? So what do? Here we go. There's a long answer by Rav Avad Yosef. Here's the bottom line. In order to save people from various transgressions, we can hear testimonies without the presence of the accused. Once again, in various cases, when there is a fear of violence, a very influential, a very strong person, connected person, etc., we are allowed to hear testimony without the presence of the person that's being accused. And we should not worry about the loss of this person's income. He did it to himself. As it is written in the Mishnah of Yadayim, the 4th chapter, the 3rd Mishnah, many times people are more worried about monetary matters than saving souls. So Rav Avad Yosef says, in order to save souls from this unkosher meat, and in order to save souls that they will not be, God forbid, beaten up, taken care of by this butcher's mafia, by his henchmen, in order to save souls, spiritually and physically, we are allowed to detour from the regular ways that the Jewish court works. Very important. That's one exception to the rules when we have a violent person that is being accused. Number 2, another regular laws do not apply. Exception to the rules, sexual crimes. Look it up. In Moed Katan, page 17, side A. No need for a court. No need for witnesses. A person who was excommunicated in public. No need to worry about gossip, about lashon hara, or embarrassment. Okay? So you got it all in one fine package. Also, moving right along, look up the same idea. What happens when there are sexual crimes against individuals? Look it up. Tractate Megillah, page 25, side B. Look it up in Maimonides, the laws of the tribunal, the Sanhedrin, chapter 24, law 5. In a booklet titled, Do Not Stand Idly by the Blood of Your Brothers and Sisters, the leading rabbis of the generation were asked, are we allowed, listen closely to this. Once again, there was a booklet called Do Not Stand Idly by the Blood of Your Brothers. And the question was asked, we have many minors that are abused. I'm not going to bring in statistics now. You could look it up yourselves. Most of the people that are being abused are minors. And now we know that according to Jewish law, minors are not acceptable to be witnesses. They are under the age. So does that mean that when a kid is abused and they are underage, that we do not accept their testimony because they do not fall into the criteria of Jewish law. And all the great leaders of our generation said with one voice, we accept minors' testimonies. We accept. Okay? Breaking the rules. Not breaking the rules. The Torah has rules for various scenarios. That's the greatness of Torah. Torah is not just one line. It is all aspects, covers all aspects of life and low lives. Pun intended. Number 3, when are we allowed to make exception to the rules, to the regular regulations? That is when we see, when the rabbis of each generation see that there are various commandments or various ideas, Jewish ideas, that are being trampled upon by the generation, and in order to strengthen these commandments, these transgressions that are becoming common practice, we are allowed to make exceptions, to make sure that people will stay away from various transgressions. We are allowed to make exceptions to our rules. Look it up. In the Tractate of Yevamot, 90, side B. In the Tractate of Sanhedrin, 46a. In Maimonides, Sanhedrin, chapter 24, laws 4 until 10. 4 to 10. Look up Maimonides, laws of murder, chapter 2, law 5. Laws do not apply. Changing of the rules in order to protect the innocent. In order to strengthen the Torah, we do have exceptions to the rules. Next part of our class. Many of the deniers out there, and beards, rabbis, leaders without beards, whatever they might be, however they might come, is misconceptions, one after another, being thrown out there, sometimes with tremendous emotion, throwing out slogans, pidgamim. And let's look at these misconceptions. Let's look at what's been thrown around and how they've twisted the true Torah idea. So let's take one misconception at a time. In this case of CW, various slogans that have been tossed around by people. Okay, number 1, misconception number 1. That is a verse on Deuteronomy 22:26. The Torah compares a rapist to a murderer. We spoke about this last week. The head rabbi in the yeshiva, in the community, the village of Zoharim, Rabbi Yechiel Kessel, explains that the way we've understood this verse for so long, that there is a comparison to a murderer, to a rapist, or to a molester, and we could save someone's life if they're if someone's going after a person to kill them, or if a person's going after to molest, we are allowed to take them out. But besides for that, there's a much deeper point that we've missed, that Rabbi Yechiel Kessel comes. He was molested from the age of 13 to 19. Go back on the on the third, or depending how you look at it, class last week. Go back on it. It's worthwhile to hear his words. I summarized his interview. But he says an amazing point. You know what? The comparison is really pale. There is, of course, a comparison. That's according to the law. But beyond the law, it is pale in comparison. Why? Because a person that is killed or murdered, that's the end. That's all, folks. He's finished. That's it. No more suffering. However, a person that has been molested or raped, they are being murdered every single day anew. When they get up in the morning, he or she, they are reliving this death blow that was handed to them. That is an amazing take on this verse. What we've understood very simply is a misconception. It goes much, much, much deeper. These poor souls are being killed day in and day out. Their misery does not end. Misconception number 2. We are told in the Talmud, Tractate Bava Metzia, page 59, side A, it is better to throw oneself in a furnace rather than embarrass another in public. Okay, that's been thrown around all the time. Look, you're embarrassing CW. It's better, say, throw yourself in a furnace. It's better to kill yourself than, to embarrass somebody. Okay, so let's straighten this out. Let's purify this. Number 1, when it says that in the Talmud, of course this is correct. Of course it is true. But it's being twisted here. Who are we talking about? This is talking about a person who is kosher, not embarrassing a kosher individual. That is what it's talking about. Not a wicked person. Look this up, folks. Maimonides, The Laws of Damage, chapter 3, law 7. Look it up. Meiri, Bava Kama, 91, page 91, side B. Number 2. This is talking about the embarrasser that the Talmud is talking about is a person that constantly and continuously embarrasses people in public. This is not talking about a person that once in a while, it says, as we will see as we go on, it says that a person that embarrasses somebody in public does not have a share in the world to come. This is not talking about a person that once in a while has embarrassed somebody. This is talking about a person who constantly embarrasses people. Look it up. Maimonides, The Laws of Repentance, chapter 3, law 25. Going on. This is not speaking, this Talmud piece is not speaking about trying to stop someone from doing evil. Such a person who embarrasses an evil person and is trying to stop this evil person from perpetrating his evils onto society, this person should be blessed. This is the Meiri, Bava Kama, Tractate Bava Kama, page 91, side B. Okay? We're not talking about somebody that is bad-mouthing an evil person in order that the public will beware of such an individual and stay their distance. And this embarrassment of a person is saving hundreds of people's lives from being murdered day in and day out, as we said, in the name of Rabbi Yechiel Kessel. Our next stepping stone. Is it really forbidden to embarrass people always? Is this a carte blanche rule? It's forbidden to embarrass people? You lose your share in the world to come? It's better to kill yourself, throw yourself in a fire? Really? Look at this. We have in the laws of the Chaim, chapter 124, paragraph 7, talks about people that speak during various stages of our prayers. It's not just what we think. Some people just think that it's talking about the repetition of the silent 19 benedictions. No, it's talking about talking about when we read the Torah. It's talking about, in general, prayers. When somebody talks during our prayers, this person is bringing tremendous calamities upon the Jewish people. Those that speak, if you see somebody speaking during the prayers, they must be admonished. 3, according to the Jewish law authorities, the Pri Megadim, and the Kaf Chaim and others, on this law, 124:7, or Chaim, they may be publicly embarrassed. Got that? A person talking, what's the big deal? Embarrassing is a big deal. It's better to throw oneself in the furnace. If you lose your share in the world to come, not so fast. Don't start throwing around statements that you don't know what they're talking about. The Piskei Tshuva, a modern day Jewish authority on halacha, Jewish laws, he writes on that 124:7 that it is better to go the way of Maimonides. What is that? First, rebuke the talker, the person that's talking in synagogue. Rebuke them privately. Once. If this doesn't help, do it again twice. If the talk continues, then one may publicly curse them out and embarrass them in public. This could be found in Maimonides, the laws of Deot, the 6th chapter, the 7th law. The book Shai Lamora, he writes on this law. When the Shai Lamora was asked, how could we embarrass somebody in public? He responded, these people are endangering the community. Did you get that? A person speaking in a synagogue, they are endangering the Jewish people. Therefore, the law is you can embarrass them. Whether we go according to Maimonides, speak to him in private, go up to him, 2-3 times, fine, it doesn't matter. Or we go to according to the Pri Megadim, Kaf Chaim and others, we embarrass him right on the spot. This person is causing a desecration of God's name, and he's bringing calamities upon the Jewish people. In fact, when we know that we're in the midst of a war now between Ukraine and Russia, one of the heroes of Ukraine, Khmelnytsky, may his name be erased, many of our sages tell us that the reason why that a third of the Jewish people were annihilated by that wicked person was because of the fact that there was talking going on in synagogues. So this is endangering the community, folks. This is not, we're playing with fire here. Next, the book, the Zera Yaakov, on page 692. He says that he asked Rabbi Joseph Lieberman, author of Questions and Answers, titled Mishnat Yosef and other books, what does it mean to reprimand somebody who's talking? Isn't it forbidden to talk in the synagogue? Isn't it forbidden to talk during the repetition prayer? So what could this law be talking about? So Rabbi Lieberman responded, no need to talk. Hit the table to silence the person. The Zera Yaakov returned to the Rabbi Lieberman and said, but this will embarrass him in public. Rabbi Lieberman responded, there is no problem embarrassing such a person in public. So we see, not the end of the world. There are exceptions to the rules. What the Talmud was telling us is of course true. It is terrible to embarrass people in public, but we have to know when that applies and when that doesn't apply. As we like to say in yeshiva talk, those that do not know when to close the Gemara might very well not open the Gemara. Okay. Next point. Is it really forbidden to embarrass always? If we open up tractate Brachot, blessings, page 19, side B, based on a verse in Leviticus 19:19, easy to remember. And this is brought down, by the way, this Talmud is brought down by Maimonides in the laws of mixing various materials, chapter 10, law 29. It says the following, that if a person outside in public, in the marketplace, or wherever in public, sees a person, even a person's rabbi, that is going in the marketplace or in a public place, and he has a mixture of wool and linen on his clothing, a person is obligated to remove that piece of clothing, even if a person will remain naked from such an action. Do we got that? Do we understand what we're talking about? This is a biblical prohibition to go with a garment with wool and linen combined. If you see even your own rabbi, can you imagine you seeing your rabbi and he's wearing this wool and linen, and you come up to him and he's not willing, to take it off, and you tear it off the person. And even if this will, some things that you tear off, nothing happened, person might be a little embarrassed in public seeing something like that happen, for sure. But he might not remain naked. But the law tells us that even if this would bring a person to nakedness, that is what one must do. So whatever happened to embarrassment, eh? Next, we have embarrassing a wayward woman in public. Let me read this very interesting summary. In Hebrew, it's called a sotah. Now, this is from the Jerusalem Talmud. The tractate is Sotah, chapter 1, law 5. If a husband, listen closely to this scenario here. If a husband, along with two kosher witnesses, warn a wife not to be alone with a certain individual man, and even so, the wife ignores this request, this demand, and once we see that she has secluded herself with this man, the process of the wayward woman begins. What is that process? Once again, we do not know what transpired in seclusion in that room. We do not know. It could be nothing. Could be nothing. But listen to what we do. Once again, we had two kosher witnesses along with a husband warning this woman not to seclude herself with a certain individual again. There's a suspicion on her. And she goes, even so, ignores, and does it. One, we make sure that she drinks the bitter tasting liquid. Number two, her clothes were torn. We tear her clothes up to her heart. Three, we remove one of her head coverings. This is also brought down in Maimonides, the laws of the Sotah, chapter 3, law 5, chapter 3, law 4. They would bring a large group of women to spectate, and also men to spectate this embarrassment, this punishment of this wayward woman. Men could come voluntarily or not to come. Women were obligated. Next, we're still on Maimonides here. They would change her dress to an ugly dress. They would remove all jewelry to make her look unappeasing. And the commentary, the Beit Davash adds, even when we seemingly do a gesture to save her honor by putting a rope to hold up her dress above her chest, that it does not go below her chest, We do this with an Egyptian rope. There was a special rope from Egypt. Why do we use an Egyptian rope? Why? Because this is a reminder to this woman that the Egyptians were known throughout history as the most immodest people in the world, who participated in tremendous sexual immodest behavior. So even when we're coming to save her honor, that her dress, once we tear her clothing, if there's a chance that it might go below her chest, so even when we're saving her honor, we're still embarrassing her and saying you're following the path of the Egyptians, who were promiscuous when it came to sexual behavior. So the Jerusalem Talmud, back to the Jerusalem Talmud, answers, why are we doing this? Because everywhere that promiscuity is found, tragedies befall people, all types of people, innocent and not innocent. The commentator, the Pnei Moshe on the Talmud of the Jerusalem Talmud, kills good and bad people. This is a serious case. The Korban Ha'eda writes, it is worthy to embarrass this woman, to frighten others, to even be alone with a foreign man, thus removing a physical threat from the community. Though she might turn out to be innocent, the fact that she went against her husband's warning and 2 kosher witnesses not to seclude herself with this man, that alone renders her eligible for embarrassment. Amazing. That's the wayward woman moving forward. Our next question is, giving up one's life not to embarrass, is this a law, or is this an important concept that many times takes a back seat? Once again, is giving up one's life? We said it's better to give up one's life by jumping in a furnace than to embarrass somebody. Is this Jewish law? Or is this an important concept to remember the importance of not embarrassing people in usual circumstances? Of course, to every scenario, there is an exception to the rule, as we've seen so far today. So let's look at the following. Rabbi Rabbeinu Yonah and the Tosfot on Sota 10b claim this is law. Got that? This is law. Amazing. On the other hand, we have the Meiri. On Tractate Brachot 43b, we have the Sfat Emet, we have the Pri Megadim, we have the Maril Diskin, and etc., claim that this is an ethical concept exaggerated by our sages to get the point of its severity across many, many times. The Torah, for example, the Talmud tells us that one that gets angry is likened to an idol worshiper. That doesn't mean that they're worshiping idols. The Talmud exaggerates in order to keep us away from a bad trait such as anger, and it gives a certain similarity to idol worshiping. Same thing here. It is a terrible thing to embarrass people in public. However, the Talmud exaggerates it, how it's better to throw yourself in a furnace, kill yourself, or you lose your share in the world to come, in order to keep people distant from this terrible trait. Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, in his work Minchat Shlomo, the first volume, the 7th chapter, the 4th letter, he says the following, he notes the following. Listen closely. It is impossible for one to think that it's permissible to kill a person who is about to embarrass another person publicly. Let's say you know Jay is about to embarrass Susan. Are you allowed, because embarrassing is worse than killing a person, are you allowed to kill Jay, who's about to embarrass Susan? Of course not. it is impossible to think this. Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, the previous generation, the Jewish law authority in the land of Israel, in the world. Rabbi Shlomo Zalman continues, it is clear that one must testify, is obligated to testify, though that there will be many people embarrassed. Oh, maybe we shouldn't testify because we're embarrassing people. No. Number 3, it is forbidden to transgress a rabbinical Sabbath prohibition to stop one that's about to embarrass someone publicly. You know someone is about to go and embarrass someone publicly. You are not allowed to do even a rabbinical transgression of the Sabbath to save that person from being embarrassed. Not even a rabbinical transgression. The book, the Shiurim Deoraita, writes on page 93, the book of Genesis. He writes the following. In trials, when somebody is in a trial, okay, one may embarrass people. 2, at certain times a teacher can embarrass a student in order to try to improve or to waken that person up. So, once again, there is exceptions to the rules. Moving right along, we have the famous 39 lashes. On various transgressions, we have, our source is Deuteronomy 25, chapter 25, verse 3. On various transgressions, I summarize. A person would receive 39 lashes from the court. This process was to embarrass the transgressor. Got it? To embarrass the transgressor. Now, this is really a dispute between, on one hand, the Tosfots on Tractate Sota, page 8, side A, and Rabbeinu Yonatan Milunil, and the Aruch Laner. They all say this whipping, lashes against the person was to embarrass them. On the other hand, the other side of the spectrum, we have Maimonides and the Ritva. They say no, this is based on verses of the Torah, and it's not the process was not per se to embarrass somebody. The process does embarrass somebody, but that wasn't the purpose. So the representatives of the court would pull on the transgressor's clothes, though that there was a good chance that they would tear, that the clothes would tear or split. There's a verse in the Torah that the lashes must be on the bare skin rather than on clothing. So that's why they would push. That's why they would pull on their clothes to remove it to a degree. There was no difference between men and women. Both were bare-chested. Once again, no difference. When it came to lashes, there was no difference between men and women. 6, a third of the whipping was between the breasts on the chest. Once again, not a pretty embarrassing scenario for both men and women. There is a discrepancy. Where did the lashes take place? According to the Riva and the Meiri, the lashes were on the stomach area. A third on one shoulder, a third on another shoulder, and one on the stomach. According to this opinion, if the whipping was on the stomach, the whole chest would have to be revealed, not just until the heart. So there's a difference of opinion. Where do we remove the clothing to punish these people? So once again, we see when it comes to the wayward woman, when it comes to giving lashes, we see a tremendous embarrassing, a person going bare-chested, etc. Rabbi Yehudah Zolden, in his book Tzidkut, Yehudah and Israel, page 409, he summarizes, though embarrassing someone in public is extremely serious, there are times that it is permissible and commendable. For example, to put pressure on a person in order to stop them from their evil ways, okay, thus saving the public. Once again, Rabbi Zolden has a whole chapter on this. In his summary, it is commendable to embarrass certain individuals if this will save people, stop them in their evil ways, and protect the public. Very clear. Next, misconception number 3. King David has a discourse with scoffers regarding his so-called sin with Bathsheba, his wife-to-be. King David tells the scoffers, a man that has relations with a married woman is put to death via strangulation, but has a place in the world to come. Unlike a person that embarrasses someone in public, he does not have a share, or she does not have a share. Once again, so it seems like it is better to, if you have to have a transgression, if you have to sin, it seems like it might be better to sin with a married woman than to embarrass somebody in public. And many have waved this flag on CW. You see? Okay, so he did it. But it is better to not embarrass somebody. That is worse than the crimes of CW. Is that so? Let's check it out. So, the Jewish law book called Misharet Moshe, brought down by Rabbi Yitzchak Atiyah on page 7b. The question was, should a person faced with one of two choices, 1, embarrassing a person, or having relations with a married woman, what should be done? So the Misharet Moshe writes that when confronted with these two options, one cannot have relations, though a person that does not embarrass does have a share in the world to come. But the law in this world is, of course, you're not allowed to have relations with a married woman. The book Ha'er Einenu, on the tractate, on his commentary on the tractate of Bava Kama, page 59, side A. How can one possibly say such a thing? Who gives permission to save their own lives by defiling another person, a married woman? Imagine that. Someone comes up to you with a gun and they say, listen, you have two options. You can embarrass somebody, or you could have relations with this married woman. Okay, what to choose? According to what we might understand, misconception of King David, of course King David never said this, we misunderstood. We might think that it is better to have relations with a married woman. Who gave us any right to have relations with a woman against her will? And married to boot. Of course, it is impossible to think of such a thing. Of course, a person must embarrass another person in such a circumstances. The Ben Ish Chai, Ben Yoyada, the 3rd volume, page 73. One is not allowed to prefer having relations with a woman whom there is a doubt if she is really married. How much more so if we know she's married? Ben Ish Chai, straight out. Simple. Simple as ABC. Nothing complicated here. It's obvious. The Torah, the Talmud understandably exaggerates the transgression of embarrassing people. It's terrible. True. But everything has to be put in proportion here. So we're not allowed to choose an option of having relations even with a woman there's a doubt whether she's married or not. She might not be married. Even so, you're not allowed to have relations. How much more so a married woman? Next, according to Tosfot Reed says on this Talmud, on this tractate, he writes there that what King David said was that a person that regretted his sin, number one, regret. A person regrets having relations with a married woman, confesses, is killed by the Jewish tribunal court, is better than a person who embarrasses that does not repent. Tosfot Reed, amazing. That's all King David was saying. That's all King David is saying. That if you perpetrated a sin against a married woman, and you went through all of the repentance steps, and you were killed as part of the repentance process, you were killed by a Jewish tribunal court, you are better off. Okay, you are better off than a person that embarrasses somebody that does not repent. The chief rabbi, the head rabbi of the Yeshiva Ramat Gan, Rabbi Yoshua Shapira, makes an unbelievable comment on this statement. It turns out, according to this logic, that we see, that a person, the workers who carry out the decisions of the Jewish tribunal court, that embarrass transgressors through their punishments, through the various punishments that we talked about today, lashes, we've talked about the wayward woman, we will get to other cases. It turns out that a person, these workers who are carrying out the will and the decree of the court by killing these people, and part of the process is this embarrassment, they do not have a share in the world to come, but the person who's being put to death does have a share to come. His situation, the workers are in a worse situation because they embarrassed by proceeding and carrying out the court's orders to kill. Thus, part of the process is embarrassment. They come out worse than the transgressor themselves that had relations with a married woman or whatever the transgression is. That's like saying people that embarrassed CW, they have no share in the world to come, but CW does have one. Next, the Torah Chaim. I summarized on this tractate that we're dealing with, King David, Baba Metzia, page 59, side A. Number one, having relations is of course a much bigger sin than embarrassing. Two, today without a tribunal court, a violator of a married woman has no share in the world to come. What King David was talking about when there was a tribunal court, when they put people to death for various transgressions, that person, if he went through all of the processes of repentance and was killed, part of the process is being killed, that's something else. But today, a person that has relations, they don't have a share in the world to come. Moving right along. Oh, we are told that you cannot speak about that. It's Lashon Hara. Or actually, if we want to correct them, Lashon Hara is truth, which means that he did all these things. But we're just not allowed to speak about it because it's derogatory. No, let's even say, oh, you can't talk about that because it's Motzi Shem Ra. It's a lie and derogatory. Okay, miscellaneous number 4. Look these sources up to get it straight. Look up the Chavetz Chaim, Shmirat HaLashon, chapter 7, law 5. Also look on the commentator, the Ber Maim Chaim, footnotes 8 and 10. 2, look in, once again, the book of the Chavetz Chaim, Shmirat HaLashon, chapter 4, law 7, footnote number 13. Look in Moed Katan, Tractate Moed Katan, page 17, side A. Look in Tractate Megillah, 25b. Look in Tractate Yoma, 86, side B, for looking up if there's a problem with Lashon Hara, evil speech, or false speech. Look that one up. Last but not least, our miscellaneous number 5. One of the people that I've been in contact with has told me that the Torah teaches compassion towards sinners even when they're punished, as is brought down in Sanhedrin 44b, 45a. Rav Nehemiah says that a person has to give a nice death. That's part of the mitzvah of Ve'ahavta l'recha kamocha, loving your neighbor. So Rabbi Yehudah writes that how do we show this love of our neighbor when we kill them, when the court has decided to kill a person? Then we must give them a nice death. How do we do that? According to Rabbi Yehudah's opinion, when a female is killed, we cover her in the front, bottom front, and the back side. The male, we cover him in the front. So once again, according to Rabbi Yehudah, the way that we give a nice death to a Jew is, if you're a woman, we cover her reproducing organs below and her behind, and for a male, just the reproducing organs in front, not the behind. Okay, that itself is very interesting, because to me it would seem to be, if you want to really love another Jew, maybe cover the whole body. What is this? Also, it was interesting that this was brought up because this is not the halacha. Maimonides and others do not give Rabbi Yehudah as the halacha. But be that as it may, that is much less problem as waving the flag of Rabbi Yehudah of covering a woman in front and back in her reproducing organs, and a male in the front. Let that be. Okay, so let's look at this concept. Loving a fellow Jew, even when they're dead, even when we must kill them, we must practice loving of our fellow Jews. Give them a nice death. We talked about, I don't know how nice of a death that is, even according to Rabbi Yehudah, but be that as it may. No, number 1, it is clear as day that this concept, choosing a nice day, is extremely limited. 2, it is still mighty embarrassing, to say the least, to be executed with a small piece of cloth covering your behind or your genitals. For a male, the behind is uncovered, and for a female, her breasts are uncovered. The Yismach Av on page 134 says, it goes without saying, we do not lower a person's punishment. Let's say a person has 2 punishments. So he wants to, we might think that it's a love of a fellow Jew to give him a lighter punishment. Choose the lighter punishment, Jack. No, we don't give him the lighter punishment. For example, let's say a person is supposed to be stoned. So we love Jews, and we're going to say, instead of stoning you, we'll give you something less. We'll only burn. We'll only set you aflame. No, we do not do that. We do not lower a person's punishment. Whatever the decision was, there are 4 types of capital punishments. We do not, if a person received number 1, we don't give him number 2. If a person received number 2, we do not give him number 3. If a person received number 3, we don't give him number 4. We don't give him a lesser degree capital punishment because of the mitzvah, the commandment of loving of Jews. It goes without saying, if a person wants a pleasant death, we do not pass him some poison so they can kill themselves. No, we make them go through this process, which has a big embarrassment to it. 5. If one was convicted for 2 separate crimes, we do not allow him or her to choose the lighter punishment. Look up Maimonides, the laws of the Sanhedrin, chapter 14, law 4. 6. Why is the verse, love your fellow Jews, not brought up when we discuss the wayward wife? Why is it not brought up when we discuss insiders, people that are trying to remove other Jews from Judaism? Why does the Torah or the Talmud not bring this up when it comes to receiving lashes? The answer is simple. All the above have various words from the Torah that teach us that in the above cases we do shame the transgressors, and we do not go by the law of loving, choosing a nice death. Simple, plain. 6. We do not apply the clause ve'afta when it comes to family mourners. Relatives are not allowed to publicly mourn their deaths. Sadness is confined to the hearts. This could be found in the laws, Maimonides, laws of the Sanhedrin, the court, tribunal court, chapter 13, verse 6. Whatever happened to love your fellow Jews? A person needs some time to sit those 7 important days when people come to visit you and to comfort you. No, you're not getting any comfort. But what happened to Rabbi Nehemiah's flag of loving a fellow Jews? Not included. Rabbi Yerucham Fishel Parla, he lived 100 years ago in the land of Israel. He has a commentary on the Book of Commandments of Rabbeinu Sadia Gaon on the 13th positive commandment. He explains the following. When the Torah says, Ve'afta l'recha kamocha, love your fellow Jew like yourself, this is really only excluding non-Jews. Look this up in Bava Kama, page 37, side B. Even a wicked person is still called re'echa, your friend, though there is a commandment to hate a person. Once again, according to Rav Yerucham Fishel Parla, he tells us that when it says loving a fellow Jew, this is talking about a Jew, even if a person does not go in the path of the Torah, he is still considered to be a Jew, even though there's a commandment to hate them. This is based on Tractate Pesachim, page 113, side B. Once again, the hate is used as a card to bring people back on track. If they know people hate you, people don't like you, you might change your ways and improve yourself. However, when you are put to death, there is no longer a reason to hate such a person. Now that they have repented, confessed, and are about to be killed, which is part of the repenting process, now there is a mitzvah of loving a fellow Jew. That is why we bring a pleasant death. Amazing explanation by Rav Rucham. He just hits that ball out of the stadium. Amazing. Ve'havta l'recha kamocha is only to somebody that is about to be put to death and went through all the processes of repentance and is going to be punished and is going to be killed for his transgression. Then, and only then, when they've repented and they've gone through all the stages of confessions, etc., and they're about to be killed, then they are considered to be Okay, now we could love such a person. The bottom line of Ve'havta l'recha kamocha. What does it really mean? It really means that a person has the choice what death you prefer. The Talmud tells us that usually a male prefers to be embarrassed and die faster. So he prefers to be without clothes. I'm not going to get exactly why that is. Just take it for face value. It's a slower death if you have clothing on. So a man wants a faster death and he's not so worried about being embarrassed. So he'd rather go naked. He'd rather be naked. And a woman would prefer a slower death and less embarrassment, so therefore that is the choice of giving a person a nice death. You choose your death. You choose embarrassment over a faster death or faster death over embarrassment. That is really what it comes down to. The Torah Adam on page 145. He explains, he asks a great question. Listen to this closely, folks. How can Rav Nehemiah on Sanhedrin 45a, how can he say because of the commandment of loving your fellow Jew, we give a transgressor a nice death? Wicked people do not come under the category of loving our fellow Jews. As Maimonides writes in Laws of Sanhedrin, chapter 17, verse 7, or chapter 13, verse 1, or chapter 23, law 10. All those that were, the Rambam writes in those following, those laws that I told you, the 3 chapters, he says that all people that were facing death penalties confessed, and plus their killing changed their status from a wicked person to a righteous person. This is also brought down by Rabbeinu Yonah in Sharei Tshuva, the 4th gate, the 20th letter. As soon as the fear of death sets upon a transgressor, he is forgiven. This could also be found in Shita Mekubetzet on the Tractate of Ketubot, page 37, side B, or the Yad Ramah on the same Tractate, Ketubot 37. Very clearly, folks, we should have asked the question, these people are wicked people. Why should the commandment of loving a fellow Jew? Re'echa usually means a Jew that observes the commandments. And this person is being put to death. He's a transgressor. Why should I love them? Very simply, because after they go through the whole repentance process and after they're about to be killed here, just the fear, the fact that they know that they're going to be killed, that whole process, even though they haven't been killed yet, that transforms them into righteous people. They've paid their dues. Number 2. Oh, I see. That's it, folks. That's all, folks. Okay. So, once again, this is The Last Dance. No, this is not Michael Jordan, The Last Dance. This is our last dance about CW. I feel that we've covered the subject enough, and I hope that that we're able to clarify the subject, and that the truth of the Torah should shine, and people realize this should be an awakening call for all of us, that to put a stop. It's about time to put a stop to these molesters within our communities. Time has come. Let's put it to stop. Stop worrying so much about the perpetrators, the predators, and start worrying about the victims.